You see this book right here? I read this book in less than 24 hours. Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Uchenna and I'm a Nigerian-based digital content creator, and on this channel I talk about everything books. So if you're looking for book recommendations and reviews, this is the right channel for you. And to my OGs, welcome back. In today's video, I'm going to be doing the book recommendation tag, and here I have with me the questions in this cute notebook which was gifted to me by my friend Kayode. So I would be answering the questions. I've written them down, so let's get into it. The first question here I have on the book recommendation tag is, what book do you tell people is your favorite book? For me, that would be The First Woman. This is one of my all-time favorite book. I just don't know. You see this book here, I can't count the number of times I've recommended this book, especially to people that are looking for like African literature and feminism retelling from an African perspective. So like this is the book. This book, The First Woman, this is my own copy is like this because it's a proof copy. And this book, it's so good. It tells the story that feminism has been in Africa even before the word feminism was crafted. Yes. So this book I highly recommend. The next question I have here is, what book is your guilty pleasure? For me, I would say all Taylor Jenkins Reid books are my guilty pleasure. Honestly, like her books, I love them. I might not love them like all at the same, like let's say 5/5 stars, but I have the 5/5 stars, I have the 4/5 stars. In general, her books are my guilty pleasure. There's no two ways about it. And if you haven't read any of her books, I highly recommend. The first book I'll always recommend is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. That book, please, for the love of God, read that book. I promise you, you would love it. The third question I have is, what book did everyone love but you didn't? Okay, this is two for me. For my recently read books I've read recently, the first one would be Someday Maybe. That book, I honestly did not enjoy that book at all. The book was not just doing this for me. I always still have issues. My friend Aisha, she was saying in the comment section the last time, she was like, the book is just not good. Nothing like because the main character is dealing with grief. That's just the book was not actually good, and I did not enjoy it that much. Then the next one that I have would be Dazzling. This book is, I recommend this book. This book is nice, but I didn't love it the way most of the people loved this book. At first, I was reading this book with a friend. She loved it. She finished it before me, right on time, but it didn't cut out for me. I struggled with this book, but in the end, I enjoyed it, but not as much as I thought I would love it. The fourth question here is, what book did you read the fastest? Okay, so for me, I have two books on the list. Now, the first one I have here is Ace of Space. You see this book right here? I read this book in less than 24 hours. And this book had me on a choke mode. Like, I couldn't drop it. I just wanted to know, oh my God, what is happening? Like, what is going on? I highly recommend, if you haven't read this, to actually check out this book. It is good. Next, also on the books I read the fastest, we have A Spell of Good Things. I also read this book in less than 24 hours. Like, I did a readathon for this book and I loved it. If you're a lover of African fiction, this book, you should not be walking, you should be running to go grab this book, because this book made me feel several emotions. The fifth question I have here is, what book deserves more hype? Okay, for this question, right, see, there's no two ways about it. You see this book titled Tomorrow Died Yesterday. Honestly, I wish this book has more hype the way we see some books on TikTok and Bookstagram. I wish this book has more hype, because this book is so good. It's an African literature, specifically Nigerian, and this book is good. And this is actually the author's first book. I was constantly talking about this book on my Instagram page. It gives you the reality of what is happening in our current country. The sixth question I have here is, a book you love that has become / it's becoming a TV show. And for me, it will be Pachinko. This book was a masterpiece. I loved it. It's a historical fiction, Asian historical fiction to be specific. And see, Asian authors, they don't play. They give you back-to-back interesting stories, and I loved this book. And I haven't seen the movie yet, but it's something that I would see maybe this year. I think so. I will just have to put that down and try to remember. But as always, I always prefer the book than the movie. There's no two ways about it. I know it looks bulky, right? It looks bulky, but I think, I kid you not, you would love it. The seventh question here is, what book have you reread the most? Okay, for me, I would pick Heart and Hustle by Patricia Bright. This book here, I've read this book 2 times, and honestly, I'm going to still read it this year again. It's a book that I always recommend to people who want to be an influencer, content creator, they're looking towards starting a brand or a side hustle. Heart and Hustle by Patricia Bright is actually that book you should read. I recommend it for also the career girlies. This book, it's good, it's nice, you get to learn, and you get to see how Patricia Bright was able to build and get to where she is today, if you know her that way on YouTube and on Instagram. The 8th book here I have is a book from a genre you don't typically read. Okay, so I read a lot of genres, but a genre that I don't read that much is classics and non-fiction books, specifically self-help books. Now, if I'm going to recommend, it's Everything is Figurative. This book, I loved it, I enjoyed it. It was unexpected. I wasn't expecting to enjoy this book the way I did, but to my surprise and to the glory of God and to the shame of the devil, I enjoyed it. I loved it. It's one of my top rates for 2023. It's a nice book. If you're looking for that book that will give you a push into starting what you want to do, into continuing what you are doing, and give you that energy, that morale, you should actually check out this book. The 9th question here is a book that deserves all the hype it gets. For me, that book would be A Broken People's Playlist by Chimika Garris. This book here is it's a collection of short stories, and you don't get like chapters. What you get is let me see, you get like a track list. Yeah, each of these track lists are stories, and this book would make you emotional. This book will take you to places you would love it. If you haven't read this book and you love short stories, I highly recommend you check this out. The 10th question is, what book do you recommend the most? I think The Mountain Sings is one of those books that I've recommended a lot. The Mountain Sings is one of those books that I've recommended a lot, honestly. So there's just how it looks like. I honestly cannot find the cover of this book. I don't know where I kept it, but this is what it looks like. And this book, I highly recommend. It's an Asian literature, it's a historical fiction. You will feel this book, you would love it, and I highly recommend for you to read it. The 11th question here is, what book has your favorite characters? For me, the book that has my favorite characters recently would be 7 Days in June, and that would be Eva's daughter. She's my favorite character, and the conversation she had with her mom, I was laughing during some of those conversations. This book is a romance book. It's interesting, and I recommend, if you haven't read 7 Days in June, you should actually pick this up and actually read this book. The next question here, which is the 12th question, is, what book do you wish you could live in? I think the first one would be Butter Honey Pig Bread, and the only reason is that so that I'll be able to eat the food that they were talking about in this book. I love this book, and I love the way the food was represented in this book. The second one I wish I could live in also would be With the Fire on High. This is the book I wish I could live in because of the food also. Although I didn't enjoy the book as much as I enjoyed the author's previous books, I loved the way the whole theme on food was being told in the book. The 13th question, a book you thought you would hate but ended up loving. Okay, so I don't really have a book that I thought I would hate, but the one that I didn't expect to actually enjoy was Sunny and the Mysteries of OCC. So I got this book back then when I was still getting into fantasy book. I felt I would not like the book, I would not love the book, but surprisingly I actually did, and I enjoyed it. This book and What Sunny Saw in the Flames, those are two books that I would always recommend for you to read. Next question, which is the 14th question, a book that made me cry, is no other book than The Kite Runner. In fact, when you see any of Khalid Hosseini's book you are reading, just get a box of tissue because you will be needing it. I feel his books should be sold with a box of tissue together. Like that package should be together. This book was the book that made me cry. I loved it and it is well written. I recommend for you to read it. If you haven't read Khalid Hosseini's books, you see A Thousand Splendid Sun, The Kite Runner, and The Mountain Echoes. I think I have the book here, yes. And The Mountain Echoes. This particular book here, I highly recommend for you to read them. And the last question I have here, a book you wish you could reread for the first time again. A book I wish I could reread for the first time would be And Then He Sang a Lullaby. This book, oh my god, I loved it. I wish I could read this book again. I would actually read it again. I don't know when, but I wish I could read this book, like erase my memory of everything I've read about this book. I read this book again because it was that good and I enjoyed it, and I highly recommend you to read. It's one of my favorite queer African literature, yes. So I recommend for you to read this book. If you're looking for something interesting, something nice, something that feels home, this is the book for you. So guys, we've come to the end of this video. Please do give this video a thumbs up if you like it, and also subscribe to the channel if you're yet to subscribe. You can also recommend the channel to friends that are looking for book recommendations or want to start reading or build a reading habit. This is the right channel for them. And with this, it's a wrap. I'm going to see you in my next video. To this.